Adventure of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
This is Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman W4CY Radio, and this is our Positively Pipeman segment with the pet health guru. And man, we're going to talk today about cat nutrition. First thing I have to ask you, Bill, right off the bat is, why is it that dogs like to eat cat poop?
Because it's more nutritious than dog food. It's that
simple. Wow, that's wild. So tell us a little bit about cat nutrition, because I think most people don't even really know. They just give their cats, they buy something off the shelf, they don't even know, and they just give it to them.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem. I mean, commercial pet foods, of course, have been around for about 75 years now. And it's just a convenience food is all it is. It's it's not nutritionally sound. It's not going to provide them with an ultimate sense of health or anything of that nature. The problem with cats, they're very unique animals in that they're obligate carnivores, which means they can only basically break down animal fats and proteins. So that, with that being said, they need a meat diet. They're also, they originated in the desert. And because of that, they have to get all their moisture from their food. They don't drink very well out of a dish or anything of that nature. So they're always, when you're feeding dry food, they're always in a state of dehydration. And of course, that creates all kinds of problems with the kidney and the liver. That's why we see so much diabetes, why we see so much kidney failure, UTIs in cats. It should just be a raw meat diet. And when we stop and think about it, we're the only creature on the face of the earth that cooks our food. And, if your choice was only to have dry cereal every single day of your life, just stop and think about that. How long would it take you to kill somebody?
Only if it was Count Chocula, then I'd be good. I could deal with Count Chocula the rest of my life. But if you gave me Cheerios for the rest of my life, I might become a serial killer. Just saying.
There you go. No pun intended, I know.
Right? Now, yeah, right? I did, you said that, and I was like, oh, crap, I did that and didn't even notice I did that.
Yep.
So here's a question I have for you. I don't see it nowadays, but used to be that cat owners only gave their cats milk, not water. Why is that? And is there a reason why it's not as popular today?
Well, first off, our milk that you buy in the supermarket is no longer milk. So the animals quite often reject it. When it used to be whole raw milk, that was fine. It was actually very nutritious because we're doing it as part of the overall feeding program back then. And so what nutritious foods did we want that were animal-based? And milk happened to be at the top of the list. Of course, our water today, too, is so highly toxic with chemicals and that sort of thing. That's why these animals will not drink the tap water, because it's just really horrible. We have to keep the body hydrated, so we do need good water. Living water is found in live foods, and that's what, raw meat basically is a living food. And the other thing is you have to do variety. You have to do a rotational diet. Every day should be something different, because every food brings different nutrients to the table. And it also, food is a dual transport system. It's bringing in nutrients, but it's also taking out very specific toxins. And of course, with our animals living basically in such a toxic environment, I mean, stop and think. They live on the floor. You're using all kinds of, deadly chemicals on your floor. It was funny. I may have mentioned it on the previous show, but when we look at even the dishwashing detergents and that sort of thing that we have, the toxicity of that leaves a film on the dishes and on your utensils and all of that. So every single day, you're just getting more toxins, more toxins, more toxins. And then, people go around sticking these stupid, scent things into their plugs. They make the room smell good, and it's right at nose level for your cat or your dog. And so they're breathing in these fumes every single moment of every single day.
And I want to add to this because I'm sure there's people out there listening or watching that like think that it's being dramatic and like what's the big deal, or even people would reference what we did when we were younger. Oh, we drank out of a garden hose. What's the big deal? And we know what the big deal is today. But here's the thing: is like you you're toxifying these animals, and they don't even have a choice. That's number one.
Right.
No, number two, I'm going to give a perfect example of what you talked about, the dishes. Okay. So I was in Bali, as you know, for like 2 to 3 months. And they have what's called their Bali Belly, which is the same as Mexico, Montezuma's Revenge. It's basically don't drink the water. Okay. And otherwise you get food poisoning. What's interesting is I did have Bali Belly like 3 times while I was there, and I was extremely careful. Here's the problem. If one drop of that tap water gets on the plate of the food you're eating, you get Bali Belly. And that's how it happened to me one time. It was like basically there was probably just a drop of water on the plate. There was nothing wrong with the food. There was nothing wrong with anything else. It was from washing the plates.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is you get all these buildup of all these different chemicals, and they all interact completely differently. The EPA lists something like 120,000 different chemicals today. But good news is that they did say 9 of them are safe. you know, our good government, really on top of things. But that's just it. I mean, there's so many different chemicals that are involved in this. And of course, what they've actually did a number of years ago, they were actually testing the cats for toxins. And the number 2 toxin that they found in their body was flame retardant, because the
Huh.
cats love to lay on the carpet, love to lay on the furniture, all of which has been treated, with all these toxic chemicals, to prevent a fire. So we're going to prevent the house from burning down if it does catch fire. And in the meantime, we kill everything in the place. You know,
So, so I just thought of something. I'm kind of curious, and maybe other people are curious. I'm highly allergic to cats. Question is, could that chain and could that also be part of what they're being fed? And if they were fed properly and with the right nutrition, maybe people allergic to cats wouldn't have such a problem. Is that true?
yes, that's true. Basically, cat dander, of course, is part of the cause of that allergen because it's a dust-like particle. But the basic part on that is that the skin is a major detoxifying organ. So all the poisons that are in the foods, in the environment, everything else that went through the cat's body are coming out in that as a toxic dust, basically, is what it really is. And of course, we're exposed to it too, through the same chemicals that are in our environment that they're living in. So now you're kind of getting a double dose or a concentrated dose of it. So if we detoxify and we make sure that our cats are being fed clean, not being over medicated, all of that sort of thing, most people that were allergic to cats no longer are. It just goes
Wow.
away.
Wow. And to go off the subject of nutrition for a bit and but stay on the cat thing, I wanted to know, it just came to me. What's your opinion of the hairless cats?
Another genetic wreck. That's what it
That,
is.
that's
The
what I
hair
was
is,
thinking. It's like
huh?
that's what I'm thinking. It was like that's mad science, Frankenstein stuff, right?
That's what it really is, unfortunately. We've with all of our pets, we keep trying to, we love the dogs, we love the cats, but let's change them. What that makes no sense to me unless you were doing it for an economic reason. Like when we breed cattle, of course, we're breeding dairy cattle for milk. That's one characteristic. Beef cattle, obviously, we breed for heavy muscle so we get good steaks. That's a little bit different. That's a lot different than most of the dog and cat breeds, especially cat breeds, because cats really, except for farm cats, you know, and ferals that are keeping the mouse population, the rat population, the lizard population down, they don't really have a functional job. I mean, what functional job can a Persian cat really have? It can't. It's lucky it can clean itself.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. What is the difference between the different cat breeds and what their nutritional needs might be?
That and the basic needs are going to be the same. But when we look at commercial foods, they're deficient to start with. So you take a long-haired cat, obviously needs more fatty acids, the aminos and stuff like that, and more protein, collagen to grow a good heavy coat. Same thing with animals that live in the more northern climates. They've got to be able to build that winter coat, so they need the high amounts of good animal protein and fats to maintain that. And when we talk about fats, everybody thinks, well, if I feed them too much fat, they're going to get fat. No, they burn fat. They don't burn sugar like we do, but yet commercial pet foods are nothing but carbohydrates and sugar. And cats are very, very addictive. That's one of the reasons why when you try to switch the diet from XYZ, you have trouble. Cats are finicky. Well, they're not finicky. They've been hooked on drugs, basically. Is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's the synthetic sugars, the aspartames and neotames, all of those. And so each company has its own, so that therefore the cat will not accept a competitor's product.
Well, and to validate that point, my youngest daughter, I've said before on the show, she has gotten big time into cats recently. And I was at her house, and she's very into researching what they can have. She's like OCD about what they can have, what they can't have. But she does give them one thing that, in a very small amount, that I watch these cats freak out when they see it, like just freak out, and then eating it. Whipped cream. What is it in whipped cream that is driving these cats nuts?
It's the sugars. It's the synthetic sugars. They're addicted to it.
Huh. That's interesting.
Whipped cream isn't whipped cream anymore. I mean, most of the whipped cream supposedly on the market doesn't have any cream in it at all.
I know, right? That's weird.
it was like I saw an analysis on I think it was Subway on their tuna subs, and they tested the tuna fish, that they put on the subs itself. There was 0% of tuna, actual real tuna, in that slurry of whatever they put on there.
Wow. That's wild. So what other sage advice can you give our listeners about how they should be feeding their pets and their cats, and what they should be doing to have a healthy, long life for the cats and stop giving them poison?
Well, the main thing is not feed them the poisonous commercial foods. That's number one. Number two, that rotational diet. So every day they're getting something different. It should always be wet. It should never be dry. Do not leave the dry food down there for them to munch on and graze, because what you're really doing is upsetting the whole digestive system. And the reason that they have a tendency to graze a little bit at a time is because they know that's not what they're supposed to have. They're just trying to stay alive. And of course, the other thing is, environmental toxins. Make sure you get good cleaning products that are safe, essentially, then you will have a healthy cat. And when you notice that something is off, correct it then. Don't run to the veterinarian, because they don't know anything except drugs, and that's just going to make that body more toxic.
I say they should run to Bill at My Paleo Pet. That's what I say.
That's what I say too.
How would they do that?
Well, they can contact me, obviously, through My Paleo Pet, which is our retail store, and our website for commercial stuff. And the numbers are all up there on the website itself. Also through Pet Health Cafe, which is my podcast, educational, every single week, brand new episodes, available 24/7 on YouTube and a number of other venues. When you go onto the website as well, on the My Paleo Pet one, there's also a media center for the hundreds of magazine articles I've written over the years. on all of this. So you've got the topics there. And of course, a lot of this also extends onto the pet parents. That's an important thing. If we don't keep the pet parents healthy, they don't have any understanding then. And, you see it in our kids, they just keep getting fast food. That's what pet food is, fast food. And they don't thrive. Cats should be living 20, 30, even longer in a good state. Now, if a cat hits like 15, they think it's a major, major accomplishment.
Yeah, I know somebody, their cat just passed away at 17, and they were like, wow, what a long life the cat had.
Yeah, it's really not. It's really not a long life. And you have to wonder, because of the cat foods and that sort of thing, how much of that was what we were, like an ultimate state of health, where they're not in pain, where they're not, having digestive issues, going blind, going deaf. All these things are all signs of toxicity.
Yeah, totally. Well, you are a superhero for our pets out there. And everybody's got to go check out mypaleopet.com, check out Pet Health Cafe, wealth of information. Tune in next Monday on the Positively Pipeman segment of the Adventures of Pipeman, where we will now switch gears to dog nutrition and talk about that.
Thank you for listening to the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.